Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Western Hunting Hub podcast, and I'm back. I was out of town. No, I've been only publishing an episode every other week. Get over it. I have a lot of stuff going on, and sorry. But appreciate you all that are here and listening. Had a fishing charter in Rhode Island and just a little husband-wife trip with some friends as well. So that was a great time. But learned a couple of things that I'm sure this audience wouldn't mind learning about, things I learned. And so my wife and I had a credit to some crappy little airline out of Minneapolis. So we wanted to, and it actually didn't turn out to be so crappy. The Sun Country airline wasn't that bad. It was a nice plane. It was fine. Didn't like all the mask wearing in the airport. That was something new. I haven't worn a mask in months and months and months. But we had a flight credit because the NCAA National Championship in Minneapolis, Wrestling Championship, was canceled back March 2019, like everything else. So we didn't get to go, and then we just had these flight credits for a little airline. We decided we wanted to go somewhere where we could fish. And that airline went to Alaska, went to Florida, went to Rhode Island, and a couple other places. And the Alaska stuff just wasn't working out. We didn't have the time off for it. It was getting really, really expensive, even with a flight credit. So we chose Rhode Island. And kind of doing a little research, come to find out that's one of the best striper fisheries in the world. So it was really, really good. Pretty fun. The experience I wanted was something that was not a mass-produced or bunch of people on a boat, party boat is what it was, what we've done before. That's what I did not want. So when I called around looking for a charter, I was looking for somebody that would have a conversation with me, somebody that would teach me, and told them, I was like, I'm a competent individual. I'm an outdoorsman. I want to be involved with stuff. And that was all fine and dandy, but I don't think they remembered that phone call. So it was not necessarily the experience I got. We were on a 6-pack boat. And if you don't know what that is, you got up to 6 people. It was going to be just my wife and I, and then we found some friends that could come along. So we had 4 of us on a boat. Pretty intimate, got to know the captain and the first mate. And it was really fun. But I think they had such a canned package of this is what we do. We find the stripers, we move to sea bass, and any extra time left over, we go catch a few bluefish. That was fun, and it was all about getting fish in the boat. And I told them, it's like, I want to bring home fish. I really, really want to bring home some fish. But I also told them, I said, I want to learn and have a good time, and that almost trumps some of the bringing home fish. So that part they didn't really pick up on. I went with adventure charters out of Rhode Island. So if you're just looking for going catching some fish, sure, go with them. But honestly, there were some ethical things there that made me question whether I'd go with them again. A couple things I really wasn't crazy about. But overall, good experience. I feel like the next experience, deep sea fishing, it's not even deep sea fishing. It's not even offshore. It's just off the coast, 19 miles out along Block Island outside of Rhode Island. This time of year, there's tons and tons of boats, but the weather was going to be really bad, and it actually ended up not being too terrible, which not too terrible was 8 to 10 foot swells. So that sucked. That was really, really rough water. But the fish were still there, and if you had your sea legs and can walk around the boat just a little bit, you could handle it. Seasickness, a whole nother thing. We'll get to that. But the experience I was really going for, and if anybody's done a bunch of deep sea fishing or fishing charters or whatever, I'd love to chat with you. But the experience I'm looking for is still not this 4-pack, 6-pack experience. It's not the party boat. I want it. It would be more like a guided hunt. It's still a guided hunt would still require you to be in decent shape to hike. It would still require you to shoot straight, be quiet, and have some level of skill. I felt like when someone set the hook on a big bait casting rod with incredible, way too much pound test line, that it just wasn't, there was no challenge to it. There was no, I felt like anybody could do it. And so that kind of bothered me. I was looking for something where it actually took a little bit of skill. And when it came to the jigging for sea bass, that was fun because it did take just a touch of skill to, I'll get to that. So we were doing stripers first, covering the rough water, pulling these umbrella harnesses of these little bait fish swiggling around. And as we're cruising, suddenly that line is just going and going. So we're hooked up. First mate grabs that rod, sets the hook, puts the rod down in the chair in front of you, and here you are just reeling. Keep the rod tip up and keep reeling, and you pull in a fish. And with that heavy a tackle, you barely even you could feel it, and it was really tiring, but you could not feel like the tug of a fish of a nice rod that has a lot of sensitivity. So that really wasn't as fun. Striped bass are supposed to be some of those really hard fighting, fun fish to catch. And I bet they are on a nice spinning rod that has some sensitivity to it. But these rigid trolling rods just didn't have it. So we started that. They were all about getting each one of our fish within the slot. We got 4, took like 5 or 6. We had to throw a couple back. But then we moved on to the sea bass. And that was fun. We had these, what you would consider a catfish spinning rod, going and jigging across the bottom, and those sea bass just bite so fast, so quick. You kind of have to leave a little bit of extra squid on the hook, so they want to just spit that out, and then in comes the bigger sea bass, kick off the little ones, and then when you feel a real hit, then you set the hook on it. More so just like pulling it tight because it's a braided line, not needing to really, really set the hook. So required just a little bit more skill. That was fun, except for the fact that we were bouncing all over the place in those 8 to 10 foot swells. Pretty tricky to keep your balance. You had to take a break for a minute, which was just fine. So we caught a bunch of those, and then it was on to the blues. Kind of that same trolling big rods. It was a canned experience, fun, but I didn't feel like a fisherman. I felt like a tourist. And so I kind of explained all that, but when they're asking me, hey, have you ever used a spinning rod before? It's like, come on, man. Yes, I've used a spinning rod. I realize I don't fish the ocean, but I'm no stranger to fishing. I listened to everything they had to say. I was trying not to be a dude and not listen, but I still didn't feel like a fellow fisherman. So if anyone's got any advice out there or a really good experience of maybe a 4 or 6 pack somewhere on the coast catching something, I'd be all over that in the future. But this experience, if you're looking for somebody to hold your hand and just be like a party boat where you just are drinking and they give you the rod and say reel it in, this is for you. So maybe it's just that captain, that first mate. I'm not sure, but one of the good things is we now have some fish in our rotation. I think we had 15 pounds of fish or so that we brought home. And I'm thinking, this is my game plan, and I thought I'd share this with you, is going on kind of a fun fishing trip over the summer. Would fill our freezer to give us maybe into December some good fish, and then come ice fishing time, we can catch some other fish, get that in the rotation. I'm not going to do a fishing charter every summer, but do something a little bit bigger, even if that was just a lake trip with a family to get a bunch of walleye or northern or something like that in the freezer. So definitely want to keep the fish going in in my freezer rotation because that's been kind of enjoyable, and we're looking forward to making some fish tacos with the sea bass. My wife caught a bonita, a green bonita. We tried that as sushi. That was fine, but I think that would have been better with a little soy sauce and some rice and actually setting it up like you would sushi. We also caught a couple of dogfish, which is funny because everybody says there's always some kind of fish like this absolute junk. It's absolute junk. You don't eat it. But I told him I really wanted to keep whatever. I wanted to keep something and try it. I was hoping for some kind of shark. Didn't happen. And I think we caught another little fish that I think, and this is where some of the ethical stuff comes in. I think it was so small, he tried cleaning it, he made a mistake, he just chucked stuff overboard. So not a fan of stuff like that. But what do you do about it? You're completely a fish out of water in a scenario that you do not feel comfortable in, and you can't do anything. On top of that, you're seasick. So that was a thing. I've been a champion chummer for some time, and every time I've been on a boat, I just don't feel normal. Took Dramamine an hour before. Didn't work. Didn't take long for me to feel sick, but just fished straight through it and took my little breaks to deal with it. First mate gave me a couple of tips. He said, next time, take a couple of Dramamine the night before and then take one again an hour before your charter. So I'm going to try that next go around, see if that makes things better. And he said, if that doesn't work, sorry, that's just the way you are. Someday I'd really like to go chasing tuna or something big offshore, or at least halibut. I'd like to do some fishing up in Alaska. So in order to do that, I got to be able to handle it. It's not that it ruined the day, but it just kind of shut me up. I wasn't myself, not talking a lot, just because I'm focusing on settling my stomach, looking at the horizon, all that junk. So if you got any more tips on seasickness, I'd love to hear that. Learned a couple things about tipping for tipping a charter. So the standard, and one thing I really, really do not like is someone begging for tips and talking about tips the entire time. That's the part of you boats get. Someone telling you, don't forget to tip. Well, how about we just enjoy the trip for now and we'll tip when we're done, is my thought. So in this charter, they didn't say a thing about the tip, so I appreciated that. And I even went to the captain and said, hey, I know 20% is the standard. So if you're looking for what the standard tipping rate is, it's about 20%, and then you go up or down based on your experience. So I told him, I was like, well, $145 is what 20% would have been. And I said, that guy was working all day long, cleaning all our fish and all that for a 7-hour fishing charter for $145. I felt bad that I was like, I can do better than that. So I gave him a little extra, and they were pretty happy about that. He was very pleased and seemed like he appreciated that. So 20%, I think, is that base for a tip if you're looking to figure that out. So lessons learned is, I think I have a few more questions that I would ask the charter or the captain before I booked a charter. I think I'd be asking more about what kind of experience that is, or tell them I'm looking for an experience for an experienced fisherman. I'm not an ocean fisherman, but I want an experience that is not hand-holding. I don't want to be a tourist. So I'm going to look for that next time, see what I can find. Next thing I learned, I did a lot of stressing out and research and figuring out how to ship my fish. So we had a game plan. The captain said about 10 pounds of fish, but I thought that's not very much. I'm going to talk him into getting more. So I think we had about 15, maybe even 20 a piece. Filled the entire Yeti hopper, a 30-quart one. But my plan was, when we got there, go to Walmart, go to a store. I never even saw Walmart, so I don't even know what one's there. But get a cheap Coleman cooler, a bunch of duct tape, like my buddy told me to do, and some gel ice packs. That was game plan. But luckily, my wife had our big suitcase planned. I was able to squeeze our Yeti hopper in there, the soft-sided cooler, right in the suitcase. Gave me half a pound to go to get to the 50 pounds, so I was good to go on the way there. So I had a Yeti hopper. When I got there, that was a great cooler to have a long vacation, to take to the beach and whatever else, so that worked out good. But then we took that onto the boat, had our food, and when the captain or the first mate was done cleaning the fish, we threw it right in there with some ice, got it to shore, and got more ice on it immediately, bagged it up. The only thing we didn't get that vacuum sealed or which would have been a little nicer, but I don't think many charters, or if anybody really does that sort of thing. So we were able to get it as much air out of Ziploc bags as possible. I knew I didn't want to freeze it that way at all. But we had a Airbnb do all that fish right in separate bags. So it was in the kind of the portions we were wanting, divided it up, put it in some Ziploc bags, got the air out, froze it. So that was frozen solid. The day before we left, I grabbed a couple of gel packs from an Ace Hardware. They ended up not even really using any because didn't have room for them. But threw all the fish that was all frozen into a primed Yeti hopper. Meaning the whole night before I had ice in there, getting it nice and cold. So when the fish got thrown in there, it wasn't taking all that heat away from or taking all that, well, it is heat, but taking energy to heat or cool that cooler down. So having that fish thrown right in there, frozen, packed all nice and tight, and then I only had room for one ice block in there. The only issue with having that frozen is all jagged edges, didn't fit as well, so we had to kind of figure things out. Next thing I would probably take a little bit more time to pack my fish in maybe a little bit better shape so it would freeze nicely. So take that little tip, use that. So we filled that up, got it zip tight, right at 47 pounds, I think it was. So we were good to go. No, I took another ice pack out, and I was only at like 30, somewhere in there. So yeah, we had 30 pounds of fish or so between the two of us. So that worked out. And I know I looked up the carry-on weight for the airline, and it was 35, which I was over, but they never checked the weight of that. So all I did was pre-check in saying, hey, I had a carry-on, and they didn't ever see the size of it. I was carrying it. I kind of just hid it between me and it was the same size as any carry-on. People have giant carry-ons, so I wasn't worried about it. So I carried that onto the plane. They never weighed it or anything, even though it was over the carry-on weight. So that worked out really well. I packed that up at maybe 8 o'clock or so in the morning. We had a flight and a connecting flight, and then a 6-hour drive home. Mind you, this is all in the summer, so there's a little bit of time outside. It's not cold out. All of that time, got home, and it's still frozen. So you guys know fish thaws out pretty quick. So I felt, man, that gave me some confidence. I could ship meat of any sort now for quite some time. So we didn't get home till 11 o'clock midnight. So for with the time change, we'll just say 12 hours of traveling in there. No, maybe more. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours or so. 15 hours of traveling is what that ended up being. All that time, that stayed frozen. The only thing that was starting to happen is, you know how that bag was, the bag wasn't stuck to the fish anymore, but the fish was still frozen. So then that was almost perfect. He pulled it out, put it right into a vacuum seal bag, vacuum sealed it, threw it in the freezer, labeled it, and now I've got vacuum sealed fish that stayed frozen that whole time, and it was a successful trip home. So if you're looking to ship some meat, fish was something I had the biggest concern. The other things I looked at was mailing it nervous about that because I was out of sight, and checking it. You really, really got to make sure that that thing is not going to leak, because if it leaks, they're going to throw it out. So that was our fishing experience. It was a good time, good getaway before hunting season kind of ramps up. But what I've noticed is it's almost too late to prep for some season stuff if you haven't already. Bow equipment, everything is backed up. I've got a new string on the way because I had a string malfunction, and it's backed up, of course, even worse than last year. So make sure you get your orders in. I need to order some Wilderness Athlete. My arrows have been ordered for 4 months, 3 months, somewhere in there. Still waiting on them. They've been back ordered. Camo, I'm not even worried about that. I've got what I need, clothing, gear, and there is no time for break-in periods if you're getting a pair of boots. So, because they're going to probably take some while to get in. But I did a fun little webinar for work. So check out South Dakota Game Fish and Parks Education on YouTube. And I did it'll be on there in by the end of, since you're listening to this, probably about the 14th of August is probably when that's going to hit. So check that out. I had a really good chunk of information there just to help with preparing for elk season. And I know it's all about South Dakota, but there's plenty of carryover to multiple other states. Pretty good, comprehensive 2-hour session of elk hunting period. So that was pretty good. Check that out. We've got a little hunting season getting revamped. Fortunately, my dad can't make it this year to Colorado with me, and think I'm still going to go. So I'm going to go Colorado by myself. I am going to pick up a tag. Probably going to just hook up with some buddies there, and Dad's going to go archery antelope hunting here in South Dakota instead. So got a couple things revamped there. I got to get in the mindset of preparing now for Colorado and all that entails: shooting, physical prep, gear prep, all that. And if you're looking for some good preparation videos, all last year, about this time in the summer, I had some really good stuff there. I don't want to redo what I've already done, because last year was a good year. I was in shape. I was in really good shape. So maybe that's just COVID. It was COVID. I had time. We all had some time to better ourselves and not just sit at home, do nothing. So that was not a bad year. I guess I'm the only one to say that, minus all the other crap that happened. So just getting a few good things done in that year. And so there was a bunch of good episodes about this time preparing for your hunts. Anyway, I will try and get our traditional stuff going. Brady Ellison was supposed to be on here with me, but he is too busy winning Olympic medals. I don't know what his problem is. So good for him, though. We'll get a hold of him. Hopefully he doesn't win too many, because otherwise we'll not be able to get a hold of him at all. So that'll be fun. Hopefully we can chat with him. And then Dogbone Hunter is going to be one of those next ones as well. So I'll reach out, get those episodes recorded, and get back on the ball. Appreciate you guys listening. Take care.
This is God's country.